It's Amy Genson, Geriatric Care Manager and owner of Genson Geriatrics Management. Happy November. Sometimes we need a little motivation from others to inspire us, whether it's to try new things, cross something off a bucket list, or simply pursue a hobby that's interested you for years. Hearing someone else's story can be the impetus to help you take that next step. Throughout this year of living your best senior life, I will be highlighting inspirational older adults. In honor of Veterans Day, I have a very special guest with a remarkable story. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you to a member of the greatest generation, Colonel, United States Air Force retired, Joe Peterburs. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to be here.
I want to begin, Joe, by thanking you for your years of service. Can you please share with our viewers the years you served and in which wars you fought?
Yes, well, I joined right after Pearl Harbor. I was 17 at the time, and on my 18th birthday, I took a competitive exam to enter the United States Army Air Training Corps. And I passed the test and went through some rigorous training and ended up as a commissioned second lieutenant fighter pilot at 19 years old. And I was shipped off to Europe, and I fought World War II in a P-51 Mustang, flying some 49 missions, the last of which was the most exciting. And then after World War II, I went on to more administrative jobs. The war was the mobilization was winding down, and I did have one a real nice experience as a 21-year-old. I was put in command of a 400. This was during segregation of the Air Force of the military, and I was put in command of a 400-man black unit. Back then, all the black soldiers were all in one unit, where the white uh, soldiers were put in units based upon their skills. So when Truman desegregated, it was my responsibility uh, to integrate my unit into the white guns, which I did successfully and was promoted to captain at 22. And then I went through a lot of the different administrative services until I became, until the Korean War came along in 1950 and 1951. I received orders to go to Korea. I went to Korea and flew some uh, 76 missions there and being wounded and a lot of battle damage. And after Korea, then I went into expand and control business, and with many exciting experiences in Newfoundland and in Britain and so on. I ended up in October of 1967 in Vietnam, and I was the manager of the airspace over the war zone in a staff position as a lieutenant colonel by that time. And I spent the year in Vietnam, and then after that, I promoted to colonel, and I had a command staff job. So first was an operations officer of a group, and I went to Germany and spent 7 years there as commander of two groups, and then and and responsible for the uh, command and control of radar units in Central Europe under the NATO command. And then I retired
Well,
after 76. After 36 years and five months of active service.
Well, I'm sure you hear it often, but it can't be said enough, and it can't be said with enough sincerity. Thank you so much for all of your years of service.
Well, it
And
was my pleasure to do so, and I'll do it all over again. So,
I think that statement says it all. But you do have an extraordinary story as it relates to the 49th mission on April 10th, 1945. Can you please share the highlights of that day?
yes, it was my 49th mission. I had flown 269 combat hours, uh, and we were escorting the initial force that was going to bomb Germany consisted of some 1,300 bombers and 900 fighter escorts. And this whole group rendezvoused over the just as we were entering Germany, and then we went towards Magdeburg, and just about at Magdeburg, this 1,300 aircraft broke up into different groups that were flying, that were hitting different targets like Potsdam, Berlin, and my unit was escorting a group that was 450 some odd B-17s, and with our about 250 fighters, and we were going to Oranienburg, which is a little north of the northwest of Berlin. And I was flying high cover about 6,000 feet above the bombers. And it was a uneventful mission until we got over target and a lot of flak. And then the bombers dropped their bombs. And just as they were dropping their bombs, we got hit by a swarm of Messerschmitt 262s, the German turbojet. It had about 100 knot uh, uh, advantage in speed over the 51. So it was fast. Group of the swarm of 262s entering the formation, and I saw this one that was behind the B-17, and he just blew it up. And of course, as soon as I saw him, I rolled over and started down that. And I got to within firing range, and he had latched onto another B-17, and simultaneously, as I was firing at him, he blew up the B-17. And I got some hits in his left wing, saw a little smoke and fire, and he, of course, rolled over and started down towards the deck. And about 3,000 feet, he went into a cloud cover. So I decided not to follow him into the cloud. I would be able to find him anyway. So I, I was looking around and I saw this airfield, and it was just loaded with German aircraft. So I decided to go have some fun and straight fit. And so I made too many passes, five passes, and I destroyed 5 aircraft on the ground and set a hangar on fire. And being by myself, I was receiving a lot of fire myself. And on my last pass, I was coming in on a Focke-Wulf 200, a Condor, a big four-headed aircraft that was part of Hitler's. And as I was coming in on it, I felt a thud, and uh, and uh, and as I blew up the aircraft and pulling up, felt another thud, and there's oil coming over my windscreen. I climbed up and I made it up to 10,000 feet, and called my group commander and told him what my position was and that I didn't know whether it was going to go east or west. East was the Russians, and it was the closest, but west was the Allies at Magdeburg. They were fighting there, about 90 miles away, and I thought maybe I could make it. So I headed west, and by the time I got to Berg, which is some probably 30 miles from Magdeburg, I was down to 1,000 feet. I was losing altitude all the time, all along, and my aircraft had started burning. So I was at 1,000 feet. So I thought I had to bail out. I wasn't going to make it. So I bailed out. I mean, I unhooked everything, get ready to bail out. And as I was unhooking, I saw this FW 190 a fighter, Luftwaffe fighter coming at me in my 3 o'clock position. So I turned into it. And as I turned into it, it fired its rockets. Unfortunately, missed. And so by the time he was gone, I was down to 500 feet. I said, heck, I'm too low to bail out, so I'm going to have to belly this again. And of course, this is all milliseconds going on, all these thought processes. Your training is all combined with it. And so, anyway, I realized then that I had unstrapped myself to bail out at 1,000 feet. And I was unstrapped and I didn't have time to strap up. So I killed myself trying to bail in. So I had to bail out. So I was passing through 400 feet. I had to go out the left side because the right side was burning. The right side, it'll throw you away from the aircraft, and the left side, it throws you into the aircraft. So I go out to the left side and I hit the tail with my knee and I pulled the ripcord, swung once and hit the ground. And I looked, I'm in the middle of acres of farmers' field, nothing to hide, nowhere. And there's about 50 yards away, there's a group of civilians running at me, farmers. It was spring, April, and they were out in the fields and they were coming running after me. So by the time they got within about 20 yards of me, I heard a noise behind me, an engine, and looked around, and it's a Luftwaffe sergeant in a motorcycle. And he comes tearing up, stops beside me, and holds the civilians off. And then a group of the big bucks from the town, the burgermeister, the chief of police, and this sort of thing, came out, and they were talking with the sergeant. They wanted to interrogate me, so they brought me into the town and they interrogated me for about an hour or so. And things were getting rough. The people were starting to get angry, and the crowd was gathering. So the sergeant said I'd take him back to the field to where he was stationed, which was in Bern at a large airfield, which the Germans were using for testing their new aircraft. Anyway, we get to Bern, and I'm put into a small cell, and then I'm questioned by the Gestapo for about 6 hours. Nothing physical, just intense interrogation. And then that evening, of course, every evening, the RAF was bombing the airfield. So I'm in a bomb shelter with all the Germans, and more RAF is bombing. So it was a little uncomfortable. And that happened 2 days. And then the third day, I was sent by train to Stalag 11, which was a British POW camp. There, they had already evacuated, except for about 100 Tommies, British Tommies, and then the vernacular. Anyway, they were British soldiers, and so we were rousted out the next morning, and we were put on a march back to Berlin. So we're about 7 days on the march, and during that time, it's just pandemonium. Thousands of people going east, thousands going west. The German army units going east, retreating basically, and German army units going west to meet the Allies. And then motorcycles, German Wehrmacht motorcycles going up and down, trying to get some order out of the pandemonium. And to crowd it off, we were strafed by our own fighters. Of course, they didn't know that they were strafing the army units, and they didn't know that we were POWs in that crowd. Anyway, we get to Stalag 3, Luckenwalde, which is a suburb. It's mostly Russian prisoners of war. And so after about 5 days, of course, you got to realize this really everything is chaos. everywhere, and in the prison there was some security, but it was very lax. So I escaped from the POW camp and started heading east, and about 5 miles down the road, I run into a Russian tank unit, and I'm able to communicate my situation to them through my little German and their little English and German, and just enhance that sign language. And anyway, they said, join us. We're going to Wittenberg on the Elbe. And I joined them, and we fought through Peterburs and up through uh, towards the west and north of Germany, and it ended up in Wittenberg on the Elbe, and a Army patrol, U.S. Army patrol, came across the Elbe, uh, and they were able to retrieve me from the Russians. And I spent a couple of days doing patrols with them, and then I got tired of that and decided to take a walk west again. And I'm 20 years old, and I, I was enjoying the experience. Anyway, I'm 5 miles away from Halle, where the Army unit stationed, and I come up. I see the C-47 cargo plane in the field, and there's about 15 men in striped shirts, emaciated. They were obviously from concentration camps. I went up to the lieutenant's pilot and co-pilot, and asked what's going on. He said, "Well, we're taking these prisoners back to Paris." And I hop along. That sounds good, Paris. So I hop on the C-47 and go with them, and it was really heartbreaking to see these poor humans just in such a terrible. And anyway, we get to Paris, and I get stamped and Laos, put under control, so my wandering days are over. And I eventually come home on the first. I'm able to get home on the 1st of June, and off to Milwaukee, where I made arrangements to marry my fiancee, Josephine, whom I had named my aircraft after. And but the one little hooker, I had to get my mom's permission to get married because I hadn't turned 21 yet. So that ended the experience, and then later I already explained some of the rest of my career, and but during the 1995 period, I never knew that the 262 that I shot damaged did not make it, and that the pilot was Oberleutnant Walter Schuck with 206 aerial victories. And so in 2095, a lot of research from other people, from primarily the the, the Europeans who were trying to find out who shot down Walter Schuck. And anyway, everything came together, and I found out that I was indeed the one that shot down Walter Schuck, and we met in Vista, California, on the 18th of May of 2005, and became very close friends, and up until his death in 2015. He was 4 years older than I.
Wow. So you were able to reconnect and meet and become friends.
That's right. Some 60 years after our first engagement.
And your first engagement is putting it mildly, I
Yeah.
would say. Well, thank you for sharing such a remarkable story. Tell me, how do you spread your message?
Well, I have a book, and then I do a lot of these. I think this is the fourth Zoom I've done in the last week. So
And I know that you go to
I go
different,
to the air shows. Yeah,
yes, you go to
yeah,
different air
yeah. That's
shows.
yeah.
So, if you don't mind my asking, Joe, how old are you?
I'm 97 years and 11 months old. I'll be 98 on the 25th of November this year.
Wow. Um, Referring to you as a member of the greatest generation at this moment doesn't even seem like compliment enough.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm so appreciative that you have taken this time and had the opportunity to share such an amazing story about your remarkable life and your many years of commitment and service to our country. So thank you for both your time today and your service.
Well, one thing I like to the old folks, uh, don't dwell on the past, dwell on the future. And one of the things I think that at 80 years old, acquiring two great granddaughters who uh, have been my inspiration and my association with the young, and also looking forward to the future, regardless of how old, is the best way to enjoy life, and probably also to extend your life.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. So I think that's a perfect note to go out on. And as a geriatric care manager, I'm here to help you with the everyday challenges and the emergencies, but I'm also here to remind you to find inspiration and motivation in the moments. Many challenges can come with aging, but like you just heard from Joe, age itself does not have to limit you from trying new things or stepping outside of your comfort zone. Allow Joe's story and all that he continues to accomplish at the age of 97 and 11 months to encourage you to live your best life. Thank you so much, Colonel United States Air Force retired Joe Petersburg. Thank you so much for your years of service and for being our guest today.
Well, thank you, and it's been my pleasure
And
to be with you and send out the word.
yes. So please share Joe's message. And in this month of November, don't forget to thank a service member in honor of Veterans Day and every day. So thank you, and we'll see you again soon.